Yashodanandana Pradajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Pradajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Tira
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, I'm here. Joy.
Shri Radha Krishna Gopala Sam Kund Radha Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Navadvip Dham ki jai, Ganga.
Hare Krishna. Loka Devi, you're the host now.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yeah, I think our Prabhu will come.
Yeah, it's
Hare
okay.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my respectful obeisances
Jai
of
Shri
the Prabhupada. All glories to Sri Guru and Guru. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for honoring our invitation for today's SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. Dear devotees, we welcome us to the beginning of a new week. We are blessed today. We have our senior uncle, the brother who is ADVAITA Krishna Prabhu, is going to be speaking to us from SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM today. Today is the beginning of a new week, and we're very fortunate that we have him to start the week with us. So we'll be treating today from SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. We are reading today from SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. We're doing the second canto, chapter 9. We are reading from text number 13. So Prabhu, thank you for being here. If you're ready, we'll put the verse on the screen and we can start.
Yes, thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Text number 13.
Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunvritam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. You can put the verse. Sri
Yes, I'm doing
Chaitanya
that.
Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaham Dadati Sapatantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Shri Yuta Kamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavangsya Shri Rupam Sagrachadam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sivishakhan Vitangsha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinam Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shannavadi Paschatadeshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So today we are studying the 9th chapter of the second canto, text 13. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhiraye Nastaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. So I read the verse. Brajishnubhirya paritto virajate Lasadvimana valibhir mahatmanam Vidyottamana pramato tamadhyubhi Savidyudabhra valibhir yathanabha. Word meaning Brajishnubhi by the glowing, Yaha the Vaikuntha lokas, Parita surrounded by, Virajate thus situated, Lasat brilliant, Vimana airplanes, Avalibhi assemblage, Maha Atmanam of the great devotees of the Lord, Vidyuttamana beautiful light, lightning, Pramada ladies, Pramada ladies, Uttama celestial, Adyubhi by complexion, Sadvidyut electric lightning, Abhravalibhi with clouds in the sky, Yatha as it were, Nabha the sky. Translation. The Vaikuntha planets are all surrounded by various airplanes, all glowing and brilliantly situated. These airplanes belong to the great Mahatmas, or devotees of the Lord. The ladies are as beautiful as lightning because of their celestial complexions, and all they combined together appear just like the sky decorated with both clouds and lightning. Purport by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. It appears that in the Vaikuntha planets there are also airplanes, brilliantly glowing, and they are occupied by the great devotees of the Lord, with ladies of celestial beauty, as brilliant as lightning. As there are airplanes, so there must be different types of carriages, like airplanes, but they may not be driven machines, as we have experienced in this world. Because everything of the same nature of eternity, bliss, and knowledge The airplanes and carriages of the same quality as Brahman. Although there is nothing except Brahman, one should not mistakenly think that there is only void and no variegatedness. Thinking like that is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Otherwise, no one would have such a misconception of voidness in Brahman. As there are airplanes, ladies and gentlemen, so there must be cities and houses and everything else just suitable to the particular planet. One should not carry the ideas of imperfection from this world to the transcendental world and not take into consideration the nature of the atmosphere as completely free from the influence of time, etc., as described previously. Hare Krishna. The Vaikuntha planets, okay, I read the verse again, go up a bit.
Can you see
Prachishnubhir
it?
pirajate lasadvimanavaliਭir mahatmanam vidyuttamana pramado tama vidvi savidyut abhrarvalibhi yatha nabha. The Vaikuntha planets also surrounded by various airplanes, all glowing and brilliantly situated. These airplanes belong to the great Mahatmas and devotees of the Lord. The ladies are as beautiful as lightning because of the celestial complexions. And all these combined together appear just like the sky decorated with both clouds and lightning. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So this chapters 9, citing, answers by citing the Lord's version. Lord Brahma is having darshan of Vaikuntha. Lord being pleased with Lord Brahma is actually showing him Vaikuntha abode, which is free from all dualities. And naturally means also free from all material modes of nature, free of the influence, the constricting influence of time, free of the influence of Maya, and so on. Generally, the male inhabitants are generally they're dark in complexion. They're generally dark in complexion, with glowing sky bluish complexions. And their eyes resemble lotus flowers. And they generally wear yellowish garments, and their bodily features very attractive. And most of the inhabitants of the age of, growing youth, like adolescent youth, even Lord Vishnu, even though sometimes when we think about Lord Vishnu, we think about Lord Vishnu being a very important, great personality, so he must be more mature in his appearance, and he should be maybe, in the prime of a man's age, which is maybe 35, 40 or something. But no, Lord Vishnu is also like a youth. And they all have 4 hands, and they're all very nicely decorated with different kinds of pearls and ornaments and medallions, and they're all very effulgent. They're all very effulgent, very dazzling, and they're very beautiful. But the sight of the inhabitants traveling with their consort in shining airplanes looked like the sky is filled with clouds and flashing light. This is a translation by Vishwanath. But here in this interesting translation, Srila Prabhupada is saying, right, that the Vaikuntha planets are surrounded by various airplanes. So quite a sight to behold. And they're all glowing and brilliantly situated. And these airplanes belong to the great Mahatmas or devotees of the Lord. So there's many things to actually look into this verse. because our understanding of Vaikuntha is very sparse. But in this, it is said that they belong to the Mahatmas or the devotees of the Lord. Do they have proprietorship? Because they have homes. Prabhupada is saying they have homes, they have houses, they have couples, and they're living together with a consort, and that is also described later on. So in this description of Vaikuntha, we see that the main emphasis is being laid on shining airplanes. And these airplanes are made of gold, rubies, lapis lazuli, and so many wonderful and precious stones. And they are not driven by machines. They're not driven by machines, which means that everything is driven by will. And everything everyone can have by just approaching the Kalpataru. You don't have to go to the supermarket and to the shops if you need anything for the service of the Lord. If you need anything for yourself, you can just go to the wish fulfilling trees and then you can get. So sometimes it's very hard to imagine, because what is a Vaikuntha planet like? But we have to read very carefully the purport and the verses in this section, because these 10 verses, starting from verse 9 to verse 18, this is giving a description of the Lord's description of Vaikuntha as seen by Lord Brahma and as shown to him by Lord Vishnu. This chapter is also sometimes called manifestation of Srimad Bhagavatam, because later on in the sections where Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu expresses his pleasure and asks Lord Brahma to invite him to ask for benedictions, then Lord Brahma puts some questions. And when Lord Brahma puts some questions, then actually Lord Vishnu, he speaks about Chatushloki Bhagavatam. So it becomes like the manifestation. This chapter is citing the Lord's version. The Lord's version of what? Citing the Lord's version of what? The Lord's version of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is actually the chapter, because the answers by citing the Lord's version. The Lord is describing Srimad Bhagavatam and is giving Chatushloki Bhagavatam later on. So in this purport, Prabhupada says that the Vaikuntha planets, they're also airplanes brilliantly glowing, and they're occupied by great devotees of the Lord, with ladies of celestial beauties, as brilliant as lightning. And generally, the ladies have their consort, and they have, Prabhupada is saying in the purport, they have different types of carriages like aeroplanes, but they're not driven by machines, because in this material world, everything is driven by machine. Nothing is self-propelled. Everything has to have a source of energy to cause the motion. And generally, people are inventing equipments that has power. But how is a power available in the spiritual world? It is not power of the machines, but it is the mystical power. The mystical power of the devotees, the mystical powers available in the spiritual world. Because there everything is driven by will and by desire, nothing is constraining. Time is not constraining. Time is not limiting. And weightlessness, what you call weight, not weightlessness, weightfulness rather. Gravity is not a problem. Time is not a problem. And there is no anxiety, there is no tiredness, there's no sleepiness, there's no ignorance, and there's no desire outside the boundaries of wanting to satisfy the Lord, which would be mode of passion. So there's no ignorance, there's no passion, so there's no movement caused by force and by passion. There's no kriya and activities that is caused by modes of passion. And there's not even the mode of goodness in the spiritual world, whereby the mode of goodness will impel someone to develop certain good qualities that are qualities of the demigods or qualities of good devotees. There's not even that. But everyone is situated in Shuddha Sattva, Vishuddha Sattva, pure goodness, transcendental mode. And in the transcendental mode, the laws of chemistry and physics that are generally limiting our ability to do what we would like are not there. Maybe one person can have a desire to fly in this world. So then he will have to get the support of a machine, get the help of a machine to be able to fly, and it will be powered by a motor that will give power, and it will have to fight against the wind and the law of gravity to be able to make itself airborne. So how does these things happen? In the Vaikuntha planet, there is no constraint. It goes by will. So he said, because everything is of the same nature of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. So everything is Sachitananda. And the airplanes and carriages of the same quality is Brahman. Brahman is Sat Chitanananda. And everything is of the same. So even though the items, the substance that is seen is Shuddha Sattva, right? The earth that is there, the water that is there, the airplane that is there, the jewels and all of that that's there. It's born out of Shuddha Sattva. But it is completely transcendental, and Prabhupada is saying everything of the same nature of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. Those are components of everything that is created. And eternity, bliss, and knowledge are not degradable. Eternity is not degradable by time, by kala. There is no experience of duality, so there is no experience of sadness. Everything is always blissful. The Lord does not have an ounce of sadness in him. The Lord doesn't have to experience anything sad. Everything is blissful, is happy. And the happiness we feel in this world is generally a counterbalance from sadness. When sadness is not there, we feel that we are happy. And when sadness comes, we feel that we are now, not happy. But there, the eternal presence of Ananda, bliss, which means that it is an ever joyful place. And there's no duality to shake that sense of always being happy, joyful, and the joy is always increasing to some measure. So how can we imagine this? How can we imagine this in this world? And because everything of the same nature of eternity is not challenged by time, bliss is not challenged by sadness there, and knowledge, and there is no ignorance. There's no ignorance. Everything is a manifestation of the Lord Chit Shakti, which means everything has knowledge. And the jivas have knowledge. And the aeroplanes also, the substance for which it is constituted is made of knowledge. It's quite a concept to grasp. And Prabhupada is saying, and the airplanes and carriages of the same quality as Brahman. We only know quality of matter here. as Bhumi upon Alu Vayu Kham, earth, water, fire, air, ether, which is generally which generally covers the jiva as a body. And then the mind helps give a false impression, that this covering this body is, including the mind intelligence, false ego, is actually ourselves. But there is knowledge. There's knowledge. So there is no any lapse in this understanding. Everyone is situated perfectly as a spirit soul. Everyone is feeling the joy that comes with being situated like that. So Prabhupada is saying, although there is nothing except Brahman, one should not mistakenly think that is only void and no variegatedness. Because that's a conception, people here with this understanding that Brahmans means no quality. Brahman means no quality. Even Pradhana, which is the cloud situated in a corner of the spirit of the sky called Brahmajyoti, even Pradhana has qualities, even though it has material qualities. The Pradhana is different. And the qualities of Pradhana empowered by the Lord so that they can actually show the variegatedness in this material world. So the variegatedness in this material world is coming from the material objects. It's coming from a combination of different objects made of different dhatus, vastus, and different substance, and made of different tattvas, and made of different ingredients that is given by Lord Vishnu in this creation. So therefore it looks that there's so many variety of things here. But then in between this material world and the Vaikuntha planet, there's Brahman. But Brahman is the same nature as a spiritual world, except that Brahman is an understanding of the vast expanse of energy in which everything in the spiritual world is suspended in, right? So even this Pradhana, which is the original source of this material world, is seen like as a separate cloud in the same region, but and then it develops into this material world with all this variegatedness. So one should not be mistakenly thinking that there's only void in the spiritual world because it is spiritual. There's spiritual variety. There's spiritual variety in taste, in sight, in beauty, in knowledge. There's so much variety. Just because we think everything is spiritual means that there's no variety. That's not so. So Prabhupada further explains, as there are airplanes, right? That means there have to be people who ride the airplane. So there are ladies and gentlemen, right? And therefore their husbands and wives, their consorts. And there must be, just like you can see in Vaikuntha planet, or even in the planet higher than that, in Goloka Vrindavan, Nanda and Maharaj, they are a couple, they are married, right? So in the same way here, there are ladies and gentlemen, so there must be cities and houses. So it tends to be a bit like utopian, but then it's a world of magic. The spiritual world is a world of absolute magic. It's a magical world. It's a mysterious world. We can have almost everything that's in here, minus the grossness, minus the gross aspects of existence, minus the dualities of pain and pleasure, minus the dualities of victory and loss, minus the dualities of, birth and death, or disease and health, and so on. So everything is there. Houses, aeroplanes, beautiful ladies, beautiful men, and they have homes and they have cities. And they're all suited for that particular type of planet. And even like sometimes when people go to the moon, or if they go, don't know where they end up, or even if they have the sight of the moon, and they say the moon is barren. The moon is just dust and craters and rocks. But then the moon itself is a planet, it's a beautiful planet with so many different varieties of inhabitants, and they drink somaras. Soma means moon, and they drink the somaras, which is available, and it's a very, very beautiful and cooling place. And Chandra is a king, and Chandra, he's married to so many ladies who were the children of Daksha, and his famous wife is called Rohini, and he likes Rohini more than all of the others. And these different queens have their own abode in the different nakshatras in the circuit of the moon, and that therefore the moon stays, Chandra stays with his different wives, right? Like that. So even the moon is not a transcendental planet. It has such incredible arrangement for the inhabitants. So one should not carry these ideas of imperfection, Prabhupada is saying, that we have here. The ideas of imperfection, which means everything here is degrading, everything has fault, everything breaks down, everything needs maintenance, everything needs constant empowering, needs electrical source, needs diesel, needs petrol, and then nothing is self-powered here. So we think it must be something like that. No, you don't need any mechanic shop. You don't need the central electricity board. Nor do you need a water supply, a company for giving you a water supply. Everything is always available at all times. Now, just to give a little understanding of that, even in Satyuga, in this Earth planet, a lot of things were always available easily. In Satyuga, there was hardly any organized agriculture. There was hardly any organized work. And it was almost considered to be ekavarni, one varna. Everyone was interested in spiritual life, mostly. And degradation started coming by the end of Satyuga. 25% of things start to go wrong. People didn't have to struggle and work 7, 8 hours. Everything was available by the arrangement of the Supreme Lord, by nature. And people had considerable wealth. They were not so interested in the wealth. They had considerable food. Quality was great. They had cows. They had so many beautiful animals, and jewels and gold and silver were easily available, around the mountainside where you'll have mounds and you move the mounds, just a small mound of earth, and then you get precious jewels. You don't have to dig inside. So even in Satyuga, Mother Earth was providing all these wonderful things for the people to live happily. But of course, there's degradation, there's time, there's birth and death. But there's no such thing there. No such thing. So we should not carry these ideas of imperfection from this world to the transcendental world and not take into consideration the nature of the atmosphere. Here, everything is controlled by time. Time is a constraining factor. It's a powerful imposition on our lives. Everything is regulated by time. Like when we do the Zoom class, time has to be specified, right? And if you get the time wrong, everything goes wrong. No one is there, no one is aware, and no one comes, and this and that. Everything is controlled by time. But we think that we are controlling. No, everything is controlled by time. And we have to work according to the time. If you don't work according to time, then we are completely out of sync. So then if you look at it carefully, then everything is laid out on the substratum of time, and everyone who's to comply. But we think, no, we don't have to comply. But I'll give you a simple example of the Zoom class. Does everyone have to comply to the time? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yeah. Everyone has to comply to time. And then we think, oh, no, we don't have to. Yeah, everyone has to. But who is controlling time? You may be setting a time. And if you set the time at 8 o'clock and you're not there, okay, so Salika Prabhu, he sets the time, okay, we start the class at 7 o'clock, and no one is there. Time will go on. It will be 7:30, 7:38. So it's actually time. And but we think because we set the time, we are controlling time. No, we're not. Time is controlling us. We are forced to abide by the rules of time. We are forced to abide by the measure of time. We are forced to abide by the ongoing, relentless pushing of time. And if you don't catch on, it's like a train that's gone and you missed it. Right? So it's like everything is railed on time, right? But Prabhupada is saying, and not take into account the nature of this atmosphere as completely free from the influence of time. There is no influence of time, and that's the main thing. Time is the external manifestation of the Supreme Lord in this material world. It is one of the 23 elements that is used as a churning rod to churn and produce the different elements of creation from pradhana by mixing the different modes, guna vaisamya. And then the different modes mixed with Mahatattva, which is the primordial material energy, gives rise to goodness. Mixed with goodness, passion, and ignorance gives rise to ahankar, mind, intelligence, and the substances. So without time, nothing happens in this world. Now you can imagine a world where there is no time. It's important to reflect on this aspect of time because in this material world, we are controlled by time. Our birth happens in time. Our death will also occur in time. And we do all our activities based on day, night, hour, and minute of the day. And also, as we get, in terms of a life cycle, as we get older, things tend to change and we do things differently. When we're young, we do things differently. And so on and so forth. So everything is actually controlled by time. But there is no aspect of time there. Everyone is free from the influence of time. Just sit back for a minute, close our eyes and think, wow. So that means there is never a sense of, I have to get there at this time, I have to do this at this time. How does it work? Because we live in the present. We live in the then and now, and we don't live in the later or past. We don't live in the future, we don't live in the past, we live in the present. But whenever there is need to think about the past or the present, it manifests also. Because you cannot have something in this material world that you do not have there. But they are never constraining and limiting. Just like when the four Kumaras, they visited the Vaikuntha planet, Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu realized that the situation is going to escalate. So he actually came there very hastily. So if someone is coming there very hastily, does that mean that things are happening according to time and he has to catch up with the time? Lord Vishnu had to come there very hastily. And he didn't want the situation between Jai Vijay and the four Kumaras to escalate. Third canto, chapter 15, right? So does that mean that the Lord was also controlled by time? No, it isn't. But to give you an understanding of the urgency of the situation, the word is used. But the Lord can also stop time. But then there's no time. or the Lord can extend time, or the time factor, the kala, is working to facilitate the Lord's pastime, not constraining. So this is the last part of this comment, as completely free from the influence of time as described above. So we should not carry the ideas of imperfection that we have here and try to understand the transcendental world. That's how it is, and how are things and activities conducted there. So I stick to the purport. Other comments will be very speculative. So I will stop here, and hopefully we can have some discussions and devotees can share and ask questions and also share and give their realization on this section where we are. Lord Brahma is having a conversation with Lord Vishnu, and Lord Brahma is given the opportunity to have darshan of a Kunta, which he is describing. And he's describing also the Lord that has appeared in front of him. And this section is very beautiful, even though it looks a little bit sketchy in information, but if you go deep in the different purports in the verse, you get a lot of information. And this is Srimad Bhagavatam is complete, and it has a lot of ocean-like deep subject matter that we can discover as we delve deep into this knowledge. So later on also, and you will come to that, as answers by citing the Lord's version, means the Lord version of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is in the last section where he talks about the 4 verses of Chatushloki Bhagavatam. So it's an interesting chapter, very interesting chapter. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for the beautiful class. And it's always an interesting thing when you hear about the descriptions about the abode of the Lord. And before I start sharing my thoughts or ask a question, dear devotees, please, this is the quick Q&A time. If anyone has a question, a comment, or reflections, please kindly indicate by using the hand emoji or raise your hand directly physically so that we can call you to ask a question.
Everyone must be fairly busy at this time there in West Africa, because I hardly see anyone with the videos on.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that there are not many of the participants here who are in West Africa. I only see a few of persons here, apart from 1, 2. I just see some few persons who are actually here in West Africa. Most of the devotees are scattered around the globe.
Oh, really?
So,
okay.
Yeah, some are in the morning hours, some are just a little bit close to the middle of the day. So, this description of the Vaikuntha planets by Lord Brahma, there's something that I wanted to ask. The first thing is that Lord Brahma performed austerity, and he had opportunity to see the vision of the abode of the Lord. For those of us who are trying to be a devotee, is there any time in the life of our devotional service that the devotee has an opportunity? Is there any point in our practice of devotional before attaining the ultimate abode of the Lord? Is there any time that there's an hope of having a darshan of the Lord or his abode? Because we read in several pastimes from the scriptures, and Dhruva Maharaj meditated, and at a point in time, the Lord appeared to him, and Narada Muni, and many other great personalities in our devotional service. Is there any hope for Sadhaka to, at any point before the exit of this body, or our experience because of this age, or because of our, is it possible in this age to have a darshan of the Lord or his abode before quitting this material body?
Well, it depends on the advancement of the devotee. If the devotee is completely free, he is Jivan Mukta, and he has a true understanding of liberation, which means that he is completely free of the modes of material nature, and is situated on the platform of the soul, and he is seeing the glory of the soul, and he is not relating anything to the body. And at the same time, he is situated in the transcendental consciousness, which is called the Vishuddha Sattva. At that moment, at that instance, it is said Vishuddha Sattvam Vasudeva Shabditam, Lord Vasudev, which is Chitta, which is our consciousness. But our consciousness is now not in the mode of Vasudeva, our consciousness in the mode of the gunas. But when our consciousness goes in the mode of Vasudeva, because our consciousness is actually, the presiding deity of Chitta, of consciousness, is actually Lord Vasudeva, Krishna. So, which is the first of the Chaturvyuha. So he is actually in charge of our consciousness. What does that mean? He presides over that consciousness. But as we can see that if our consciousness is mixed with the material modes and it is contaminated by the material modes, that's why Prabhupada called it's contaminated consciousness, it's impure consciousness. Then in that consciousness it is not possible for Vasudeva, Sri Krishna, to appear. So the Lord is there. The Lord is always there. He's always present. But the inability to see him is because our consciousness is polluted by modes of nature. And as long as our consciousness is polluted by the modes of nature, it may be a lifetime of service. It may be 2 lifetimes of service. It may be 3 lifetimes of service. It may not be possible to see the Lord. But when our consciousness becomes Vishuddha Sattvam, Vasudeva Shabdam, then Lord Vasudeva will be seen. And we can see him, we can relate to him, and the experience of seeing him, which is described a little bit like the experience of even Dhruva Maharaj in the latter part of his life, when he meditates, when he leaves everything, and he goes and he prepares himself to depart from this world, which means that he enters into the ecstasy of remembrance of the Lord, worship of the Lord. Then he's actually in the spiritual world associating with the Lord. And therefore, he didn't have to go through the, the step of change of body or change of status from being alive here to being dead and then being alive again in the spiritual world. He just went on the aeroplane almost in that body. That means that he was completely transcendental. So yes, it is possible. And I'm speculating that Prabhupada had more than just a few darshan of the Supreme Lord while writing Srimad Bhagavatam, so he wrote so beautifully and things improved and got better and better as he wrote Srimad Bhagavatam. So of course Srila Prabhupada had darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I don't have any doubt about that. But we have to come to that level of Shuddha Sattva, Vishuddha Sattva, pure transcendental goodness, which is actually transcendental flame. It is not pure Sattva, not 100% mode of goodness. It is transcendental mode. And in that transcendental mode, according to our development of spiritual desire, whatever we desire, then Krishna will fulfill. Like I gave also the example of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva went into deep meditation when he was asked by Narad Muni to rewrite Srimad Bhagavatam and do it otherwise. Then he went into a sapragyata samadhi. He was completely in samadhi. And in that samadhi, he could actually see the Lord. He actually had darshan of the Lord, the Lord's Maya, the Lord's devotees. He even had darshan of everyone, who were here and who are there now, and in the future, those who are going to go there. And later on, you will see that even Lord Brahma, he describes that seeing all the devotees and the demons worshipping the Supreme Lord in the Vaikuntha planets. Now, how does that happen? Because people like Prahlad Maharaj, considered to be demons, Bali Maharaj, considered to be demons, and Vritasura, considered to be demons, they all attain the lotus feet of the Lord. So it is all seen. So they can definitely see. But that state for where you can actually see, it is not seen by the eye. It is not a darshan. It is not, something that happened because of our senses. No. It happens because the Supreme Lord is present in our heart, and our desire is pure, and we are pure, and we see Him. Sometimes some of my teachers say, we will see it in the mirror of your heart. And that's what Lord Mahaprabhu says, Cheto Darpanam Arjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam. We clean the mirror of the heart, Cheto Darpana. Darpana means mirror. The consciousness is like a mirror. And if the consciousness is dirty, it reflects material nature, material culture. If the consciousness is pure, it will reflect Vasudev. So Cheto Darpana Marchanam, we clean. Marchanam means clean. Clean, consciousness, which is like a mirror. Why does it say like a mirror? Darpanam. Darpan means mirror. Because from there you can see. You can actually see there. Here we are looking at objects. There we can actually see the truth, the reality, the absolute truth in pure consciousness. Yes, I hope I answered.
Yeah, thank you very much. Madhavan Prabhu's answer is up. I would like to ask a follow-up question to this, but Madhavan Prabhu's hand is up, so I would allow him to go. Madhavan Prabhu, please kindly unmute and ask a question.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your wonderful lecture. Anytime I know you are on air, I'm always eager to listen to your lecture. I always
Thank you.
enjoy it. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So, I just want to talk of my own personal realization. I believe many times during the dream, I've been to different places. There was a time I was in a place. I saw family, large family. It can be a family of about 15, 18 children, and their residences very opulent. In fact, people there, their income, their income comes per second per second. They will tell you the way they are making their money, like per second, and everything there is animated. If you see a bike, if you want to board a bike, for instance, you just tell the bike you are going to so place, it takes you there. Even when you go to the toilet, after finishing, automatically the whole thing just happens, washes the place, water will flow, everything will just flow. So no poverty at all. There's nothing like poverty in that environment. And everything is animated. Everything is animated. Then at another point in time also, when I was in the university, just in the evening, around 5 in the evening, I just looked up and I saw something like a flying saucer. It's actually UFO, which I saw. The thing just came and it gazed. That gazing at me, at a point, that saucer remains fixed in the mid-air. Until you put something on the ground, there's no movement. And it does that for maybe a minute or two. Then after some time, there was movement. It moves by rotation. So when it started the movement, it was a little sluggish. Then the rotation starts sluggishly. Then after some time, the rotation was terrific. And then you can see the movement of air around the ship. You see the movement. You know, it's very fast. Then after that, then it starts to move. So the movement is like it just moves, you know, in such a way like this. Then when it moves, at a point it gains a maximum speed, the thing just disappears. So that was the time I knew that if something is moving fast, your eyes cannot follow it up. It will just disappear. So I saw that one, you know, I saw it. But to my surprise that day, somebody was standing next to me and I told him that I should look at what I'm seeing, but the guy said he couldn't see anything. So I believe that since the Lord is within our heart, by His mercy, He can show us anything. And because of this vision that I saw, that was what brought me to temple because I just discovered that being a Christian and all these things, nobody could give me explanation of what happens. But when I got to temple, they now told me that there are innumerable universes, innumerable planets. Then I knew that it's either these people are coming from another planet because it's interstellar travel. And then about the ship, in this text now we mentioned that there is no engine. You know, in this their ship is noiseless, doesn't give any smoke, and it's terrifically fast. So I believe by the master of Krishna, I can just show us some vision. Not that we are too, or not until we go into austerity or we come to fear or something. But by his mercy, can try to show us something. That's just my own little realization. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
So you are made a devotee by the UFO.
Yes, something like that.
So some demigod came and made you into devotee, yeah?
Yeah, something like that, Prabhu.
Okay, so it must be a very nice demigod. Come and preach. And I like that. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, I mean, the unidentified flying objects is been you see from even lower planetary systems and even upper planetary systems. When you talk about the UFOs, it's generally from the lower planetary systems because they have machines and they have mystic yoga and they have advanced technologies, sometimes even more advanced than what you have in the Earth planet. Prabhupada said that the lower planetary systems are almost as opulent as the upper planetary systems or the Swarga Loka, but they are driven by different types of yogic siddhis and powers. Like Maya Danava, I give you an example of Maya Danava is considered to be an architect, and he can build flying airplanes. And he is incredibly endowed with all kinds of powers for creation of units. Even sometimes he can create even small planet that can fly by itself. So that is described in the fifth canto. So yes, but that is also still the realm of the material 14 planetary systems. The lower planetary system is very interesting also. And sometimes when sometimes they have an idea that these people in the lower planetary systems are like ET, extraterrestrial with thin, elongated legs and hands and big oblong eyes and so on and so forth. It's just an imagination, but it is not so imaginary too. There are species of that category also. Because human being cannot imagine or create something from their mind that doesn't exist. Otherwise, human being become creators and we're not creators. So that's also a consideration. Those things are there. It's in the imaginary of people. And how can you come to imagine something if it didn't exist? See? So it's there. Yeah. Yes. Anything? Yes. Hare Krishna, Sahadev Prabhu. Your hands up.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you, Madhavan Prabhu, for sharing your experience. Sahadev Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the class, of course, as always. My apologies for coming in late. I have a question about the description of the spiritual world of the Vaikuntha planets. I've always been eager to want to know more about what's going on in the Vaikuntha planets. Now, we know in this material world, we have certain countries that are called developed countries. There are some countries referred to as developing countries. And there are some countries referred to as underdeveloped or third world countries. But I do not think we have such categories in the spiritual world. And if we do not have such categorization in the spiritual world, then how then do we say that in the Vaikuntha planets there is a higher planet, and the highest of it all, of them all, is Goloka Vrindavan? That brings the question as to different levels, even in the spiritual world, where we say that everything is same. Everybody sees each and every one as their master. So if you may throw some light on this. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Yes, there's variegatedness. So how do you explain variegatedness? That means that there are varieties, and varieties also indicate various kinds of things and various types of things. But what is variety mostly based on is to enhance, firstly, the variety is required to enhance beauty. If there were only one types of fish in the different ponds, it would not be very nice. Variety of different fishes in the ponds. The varieties of different flowers in the different forests and the different gardens. There are varieties of different jewels that are used to decorate the walls of the public places or the walls in the homes, in the houses, and so on. There are varieties of gentlemen and ladies. So even though they all look a little bit like Lord Vishnu, there's still variety. And everyone is still an individual. And everyone is still wanting to serve the Lord in a very specific way. And the Vaikuntha planets are not just one planet. The Vaikuntha planets are varieties of different planets. Hundreds and hundreds or millions and millions of different Vaikuntha planets with different deities in charge of each one of them. There's a particular planet for Vamanadev, there's a particular planet for Vartasarati, there's a particular planet for Dwarka, there's a particular planet Mathura, and so on, Ayodhya, and Shingadev and Vamanadev and Matsya, and all these different personalities have their own special planets. So in what sense is that variety? In the sense that I've just described. But then why are there hierarchy? What you're suggesting is, why should there be hierarchy if everything is all spiritual and transcendental? Yes, it is all spiritual and transcendental, but the description is given by Rupa Goswami about descriptions of Dwarka, Mathura, and Vrindavan. And it is explained like this, and this gives a glimpse of. Says that Mathura, Dwarka is Purna, it's complete. And Mathura is Purnatara, it's more complete. And Golok Vrindavan is Purnatama, most complete. So if something is complete, how can it be more complete than complete? And how can it be most complete than more complete? So this is a very interesting spiritual concept. It's a spiritual concept of things that, yes, Krishna is very beautiful, and so many wonderful personalities are beautiful. But why is everyone so attracted to Krishna? Because yes, there are so many inhabitants in Vaikuntha, inhabitants in Mathura, in Ayodhya, and out of all of them, Krishna is the most beautiful. So already there's gradation. If you say Krishna is the most beautiful, that means in the spiritual world, what to say about the material world? There's no one as beautiful as Krishna. Someone is very knowledgeable. The spiritual world is Sachitananda. Okay? So it is full of bliss, eternity, and knowledge. Does that mean that everyone has the same knowledge as Krishna? No, because he's the most knowledgeable. So yes, there is a sense of how do we understand, how do we reconcile, right? How do we reconcile, like you were giving the example of, lower planets and higher planets. So in the spiritual world also, there are variety, there are grades, but it is based mostly, and this is the last point, it is based on rasa. It is based on relationship. Just like you have a family, right? In your family, if you're living with your grandparents, your mother, father, and everyone, then there is two of you in the family, whoever two may be, they have some very intimate, deep relationship that you don't have with your grandfather, your grandmother, your mother, your father, or your children, but you have, say, for example, your spouse. That is a different relationship. So similarly, you may have different relationships in your family, and you may also have that kind of relationship with other peoples in the village. But the relationship you have with your kids, with your grandfather, your mother, is different than what you have outside. So in the spiritual world, it is the same. I give another example of how spiritually you can understand this. When Lord Brahma, in the Brahma Vimohan Lila, he took away the cows and the cowherd boys and everyone, and he hid them in the cave. He hid them in the cave. And then Krishna had to replicate everything, right? Krishna had to replicate everything. And Krishna therefore had to manifest as the boys, the cowherd boys, and he had to manifest as the calves and the other small animals that they were tending. Then Krishna also had to manifest as the clothes that they were wearing. Krishna had to manifest the different apparel, the different wares, and the different paraphernalia and everything. Krishna replicated everything. Krishna replicated everything, right, in the Brahma Mohan Lila. But what happens when they went home? When they went home, they saw that there was a very strange upheaval, a very beautiful and strange upheaval, a very beautiful kind of mood. And they saw that the cowherd men and women whose children Brahma had taken, and although Krishna had replicated these children, had copied them, and they were now in the house of the cowherd boys, cowherd men and women. And the cows also, who had now got the calves, in the cowshed, which is actually Krishna. What happened at that moment, it is described that the love and the affection of the cows for the calves, the care and absolute and care and I don't know, the care of all the apparel and all the paraphernalia that was in the house that was bought by the boys in the household, different household, and the children, the cowherd boys, their mother and father were showing intensely more affection than they were showing before. Why? Why is that? Because they were now direct expansion of Krishna. Do you so? So if you take it from the lower level of where we are Brahman and we just crossed into Brahma Jyoti, and then we enter into one of the planets, which is the Vaikuntha planets, right? You see the affection, the rasa, the relationship, the development of the relationship in the 5 primary rasas and the 7 secondary rasas. It increases and increases and increases and increases and increases, all the way to the best rasa is where the beyond even the conjugal rasa is a parakiya rasa, where without considering social convention, without considering husband, family, children, mother, father, the gopis actually giving their love to Krishna. And that is the highest form of manifestation of love and the highest rasa in the spiritual world. So yes, there is a gradation, but the gradation doesn't mean that the person at the lower rung and the higher rung is not satisfied. Everyone is very happy and satisfied in their relationship, and everyone is glorifying each other's relationship. There's no competition, oh, you're better than me, right? There's nothing like that. The competition is only because we want to enhance the service and the love of Krishna that each one of us has for him and he has for us. But there is gradation.
Thank you so much for the answer, and I really appreciated the answer because it kind of helps clear the cloud of some devotees. Some devotees sometimes speak in such a way as if even a soul is able to go to Vaikuntha, it's nothing until you go to Goloka Vrindavan. But the explanation you gave is very satisfactory that even though there are such gradations, but everyone is happy at the level they rendering service to Krishna.
Yes.
The most important thing is being conscious and being happy that you're rendering service to Krishna, regardless of where and when and how. But once Krishna accepts your service and Krishna is happy with your service, that's all it matters. So thank you.
I give another small example. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, just bear with me for 1 minute. Another example is there's men and women in Vaikuntha planets and they are consorts, but they're not attracted and they have no sex life. Why is that they have no sex life? Is because they are more attracted to Lord Vishnu. They are absolutely more attracted to Lord Vishnu. Therefore, the attraction that they have for each other is completely nullified because the attraction he is a central attraction in Vaikuntha planet. Lord Vishnu is a central attraction. So no one else is attracted to anything else. Another example, if you read the story of Kardama Muni and when Lord Kapila appears, this is a very beautiful example. You bear with me, Prabhu, beg of forgiveness. So another beautiful example is Kardama Muni was a yogi. And because of his pure consciousness, because he's very advanced yogi, he wanted to actually, and yogis are generally in pure consciousness, they develop Shantarati. Shantarati means they develop a neutral relationship with the Supreme Lord. Now, Devahuti was his wife, his very good wife, and then gave birth to Kapila Dev, and Kapila Dev grew up. And Devahuti wanted to have a child so that he would be taken care of, because Kardama Muni said that once I give you, I will remove myself. So the question we pose is this. Kapila Dev is a Supreme Personality of Godhead. He appears in the home of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. Why then would Kardama Muni have a private conversation with Kapila Dev and said, I rather retire to the forest and meditate and attain the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Why? The Supreme Personality of Godhead is born in his home. Why did he do that? He did that because being of the discipline of a yogi, his relationship with the Supreme Lord in pure meditation was in Shantarati, appreciation of the Supreme Lord. Then he could not deal with the Supreme Lord as his son. He didn't have the Vatsalya ras, he had the neutral ras. You understand? He had the Shanta ras, not the Vatsalya ras, to look after Kapila Dev. Right? So therefore he felt this is not the natural position for him to serve the Supreme Lord. So he left the house. You see, because his relationship was in Shantaras. So he said, no, I'm used to hearing about the Lord, meditating on his greatness, appreciating his absolute beauty, his fantastic nature and everything else. And I'd rather go and meditate on this and go back home, back to Garden. Now you see.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
I've seen your question in the chat room. We'll allow Prabhu to go, then I'll come to your question. Prabhu, please kindly unmute and ask a question.
Hi, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my
Hare
humble
Krishna.
obeisance. All
Accept
glories
mine.
to the Son of the devotees. Thank you very much. When you were describing the spiritual world, among the other qualities you mentioned is the fact that there's no sleepiness and there's no ignorance. You use the word there's no sleepiness and there's no ignorance. So once we had some devotees like to defend the idea that the jiva fall from the spiritual world. It's like sleeping, that the soul is sleeping. And then at some point it will wake up again, and then it will realize that it's been having some nightmare, So can we really justify that assertion that the souls in the spiritual world can fall into such sleepiness that will make them to experience the material world like a kushma, like a nightmare? Hare Krishna.
I haven't read that, but I haven't read about that at all. I haven't found about that at all. But maybe people are confused about when the annihilation happens in the material world. I may be on a different path, but let me go on this thought first, and then you can rearrange or you can re-ask questions if I haven't answered. What happens is at the time of creation, all the jivas are in the body of Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu goes into yoga nidra. And the jivas are without subtle body, and the jivas are without gross body. And therefore, they are unable to be awakened according to their karma. They are only awakened to their karma to act in the material world after pradhana, the primordial material energy, or the avyakta, the unmanifest material energy, is activated and goes into some kind of a gestation, and it's called Mahatattva. Then the jivas are given senses. The senses are produced, and then the Lord Brahma creates the different bodies, and then they go on into their karmic duties according to previous creation. Interestingly, we are involved in the material world, we are involved more with Paramatma than we involved with Krishna. Interestingly, and this is also the explanations in Paramatma Sandarbha. And Jiva Goswami says that Jiva is part of Paramatma in the material world. And he is a regulator, he's the animator, he's a creator, and he's a destroyer. And he is the one who awakens us to do our karmic and fruitive duties in this world according to our past karmas. So the idea of awakening to your karmic duties is because everything goes to sleep at the time of annihilation. And when Lord Mahavishnu, Mahasankarshan, he breathed in. But that is happening in Karanajal, that is happening in Pradhana. That is not happening in the spiritual world. Kind of half answer your questions. The other part I would not want to answer. Whereas it would mean that there's a jiva fall from the spiritual world.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. I
Hare
hope
Krishna.
that
Varaha
satisfied.
Prabhu, you want to say something?
No, it's okay. I mean, you just clarified that the jiva waking up is in the pradhana, it's not in the spiritual world. So thank you.
Yeah,
Hare
not
Krishna.
the spiritual world. Hare Krishna Pradhana. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting topic. Prabhu has chosen not to speak about the other side. So we'll leave it like that. And Anadi Nindanam Prabhu asked a question on the chat to me. He said, Hare Krishna Prabhu, I'd like to know if our desires are generated from our minds or from the soul, because you said in this Vaikuntha planet, the residents don't desire anything rather than desires that pleases the Lord. I know the subtle body is made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego. And the material body is made up of water, fire, etc. And the spiritual body is externally blissful. I think you want to write eternally blissful.
Eternally.
My question is, where does the desire come from? Is it from the soul or the mind? Thank you. Where does the desire come from?
It's both. When you're conditioned. When you're conditioned, the desire, the mind becomes a repository of memories, and then it rehashes the desires that was there over and over again when you're conditioned. But originally, the desires also come from the soul. The only thing that comes from the soul in this material world is actually desire. But the desire that is coming from the soul, it is not if it is contaminated desire, it's coming from chitta, the material consciousness. The material consciousness is still consciousness coming empowered by the soul, but it's really nothing to do with the soul because it is a covering that rehashing the desires. So it's chitta, material consciousness. So we have had so many different experiences. So because of the different experiences, these desires are being rehashed, recycled, resent, relived, rewanted, relived, like that. But one desire that comes from the soul is a desire to serve the Lord. The desire to serve the Lord is a natural propensity of the soul because it is very natural for the soul to want to serve the Lord. So when and that is awakened because of two things. Initially, because of Sukriti. Sukriti means pious activities in relationship to devotion. There are different types of pious activities. But if you do pious activities in relationship to bhakti, then your desire to serve the Lord will be awakened. And it is further enhanced by the association of devotees. That desire comes from the soul. And that's the only yearning of the soul, is to connect to the Supreme Lord. So that's why Shraddha, faith, is actually an imposition of a desire or a desire of coming from other devotees, right? That kindles that desire to serve the Supreme Lord, which is called Shraddha. And Shraddha means having a faith to want to know the Lord, to develop your relationship with the Lord. Now, you have to understand the mind as being matter. The mind is nothing but matter. The intelligence is nothing but matter. And the ego is nothing but matter, but it is subtle. So I generally encourage devotees to not think of the mind, intelligence, and false ego in terms of it being spiritual. It isn't. It is generated in pradhana. It is generated from material creation. It is elements that are required to build you and me. If Lord Brahma only built you with earth, water, fire, air, ether, you'll be a statue. But he had to include senses. which is a subtle program, an instrument for action. The instrument for action, like my hand, instrument for action, but there has to be also a desire for me to do like this with the hand. That's called antakarana, the subtle senses. It is all linked up to the mind and the intelligence which is required to make the senses work, which is a subtle program, so to speak. And the ego to identify as you wanting it. So the mind, intelligence, and false ego are three subtle elements. And Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita 7:4. Right? He says, Bhumi, Apo, Nala, Vayu, Kham, 5. Mano, Buddhi, Ahankar, Iti Yamme, Bhinna, Prakriti, Ashtada. My 8 separated material energies. Material energies, the elements of matter. They are the building block of you and me, materially speaking. And the soul is just like when the child is growing in the womb, then it is linked to the mind, intelligence, and false ego of the mother, right? In a way. And then later on, it develops its own mind, intelligence, and false ego. But those are elements that is put together in the subtle creation of the living being. So you should always think like that. Mind, intelligence, and false ego is also part of the material body, but it is subtle. And the water, air, fire, etc. is also part of the material body, but it is gross. And the spiritual body is an expansion, so to speak. It is a blowing up of the soul into the full-blown glory of its existence in the spiritual world. Right now, it is engaged, it is conditioned, it is blocked, and it is miserable. Of course, he doesn't experience misery. The soul doesn't experience misery, but it is in a miserable condition, unable to act its full glory, which is astonishing. So that desire is there in the soul. I want to go back. I want to reconnect. And that desire is there, but it is mostly very dim and very covered. Why? Because the intensity of sinful activities. So when the intensity of sinful activities go down, yeshotantagata papam jananam punya karmanam, there is when the intensity of sinful activities go down, there is a burst of desire in the heart to want to connect to the Lord. Then the devotees come along and then they encourage you, yeah, do this and do that and do this and do that. That is coming from the soul. Did I answer your question?
I didn't need that. Are you okay with that? Okay, I think it should be. It's not answering. But let me ask a question before Prabhuji in regards to this answer you gave to Anadene Nidanam's question. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7:24, Lord Krishna says, Ishatvisha Samutena, Danda Mohena Bharata, Salva Bhutani Samoham, Sargayanti Parantapa. O sign of Bharat, O conqueror of foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arising from desire and hate. So my question is that
which one is it? Which verse?
7:28. I can bring it up.
720, no?
727, sorry. It should be 727.
27, yeah.
Yeah, 727.
Okay, I have it.
Let me try to bring the verse out. Just a minute.
It's okay, I have it. Ikchadvesa samutena danda mohena bharata. Sarva bhutani samham sargayanti parantapa.
Yeah. So in relation to the answer you just gave to and I didn't need them now. And back to the question Vara Prabhu asked. This test is talking about what brings the living entity into this existence. They are born into this situation as a result of a desire and hate. due to dualities. At what point in the life of a soul is this verse referring to? Because the soul is eternal, is eternally part and parcel of the Lord.
So the living entity is in the conditioned material world. Because the living entity is in the material world, in the material sphere, whether in manifest and unmanifest condition. When they are unmanifest, they are not born. But when material world is created, they are manifest and then they are born. But when they are born in the manifest world, the world goes through cycles of vyakta and avyakta, manifest and unmanifest. But when the material world becomes manifest, then the jivas are given bodies and therefore they appear to be born. The soul is never born, the soul is there. But the soul appears to be born. But whenever they are born depending on iksha and dvesa, in love and hate. Right? Because they're born in duality. Why are they born in duality? Because they are awakened to the past desires for fruitive activities. This world is a world of fruitive activities, and they're awakened with their potentiality to enact the fruitive activities. And the fruitive activities basically mean I like this, I don't like this. So fruitive activities is ichha dvesa samudena. Right? So when he says all living entities are born bewildered by dualities, arisen from desire and hate because of fruitive activities. They are not born in this world to serve the Supreme Lord. They are born in this world to enact their own karma, which is awakened by the mercy of Lord Mahavishnu. They have karma when they are born in this world. Even from the point of creation, they come in this world with their karma. Karma they did in the last creation didn't go away.
Okay. Yeah, that's exactly the point I'm trying to get at, because
it's a cycle.
It's a cycle. No one, Prabhupada said, can trace the cycle of repeated birth and death, because it's completely beyond the comprehension of the conditioned soul to comprehend. And so Prabhupada always will say that, and he will give an analogy of one who finds himself drowning. His question is not to ask, how did I get into this ocean? First thing, priority of him is, let me get out first and then find out. So in relation back to the question that I did ask, I think he's wanting to say something. This is interesting because I saw one post he posed this morning, and he was saying something. And so when he asked this question, I was trying to relate to what he posted in the morning, and it is a constant desire of the soul to always want to know its origin. It's an ever-existing desire of the soul to want it to know that. And no one can take it away from the Jivatma, because everyone wants to know. And that there's never going to be any time that there's going to be any conclusive statement on this, based on my understanding.
The condition of the soul is anadi. It is the condition of the soul is beginless.
Exactly. Thank you very much. I just wanted to hear that word. Thank you. That's
anadi.
Okay for
it's beginless.
I'll leave
because
it at that.
We cannot put a date on it. That's why
Exactly.
It is considered beginless.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And the condition of the soul, it goes on and on and on. And it goes on and on and on. And it goes on. And every creation we come back and it goes on and on and on. It's beginless.
It's beginningless. Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
And that word is used. And that word is used by Lord Krishna in the 11th canto. Did I rub someone the wrong way? Acharya, Varaha Prabhu.
Haribol.
Krishna uses a word, the condition of the word.
Yeah, he says Anadi. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Yeah, it's Anadi.
Smasadi, Prabhu.
Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for answering those questions. Anadinina Prabhu's question is very interesting. And I still have questions to that question from the answer you gave, Prabhuji, because my understanding is that when we say, like Anadinina was asking, desires, is it from the soul or is it just from the mind, the intelligence? And you explained, like, in the material world is the mind, in the spiritual world is the soul. But my understanding, and I will need you to help clarify this. My understanding is that whether in the material world or in the spiritual world, desires are born out by the soul. By the soul uses these different elements, the mind, the intelligence, to express himself. Except we say that in the spiritual world, there is no mind, there is no intelligence. But I understand that in the spiritual world, there is mind, there is intelligence. The only difference is that those are spiritual, whereas those we have here are material. And the soul uses or expresses himself externally through these elements, the mind and intelligence. And so if someone is asking whether it's coming from the mind, the intelligence, or the soul, it's obviously coming from the soul, but the soul is expressing himself through these elements. What do you think?
No, yeah, I understand, yeah. Well, I said both, because for the very conditioned soul, it's coming from the mind. Just like there's no inquiry, I said both. In the material world, it's coming from both. Like, I'll give you an example of an animal. It doesn't have any desire for liberation. And the desire for liberation comes from the soul. It doesn't come from the body or the mind. But the desire to eat and kill in the lion comes from the mind. Right? So when you are very conditioned, when the intensity of the sinful activity is very intense, we are rehashing and recycling our desires. So the complete, in the mode of ignorance, with lack of spiritual knowledge, the soul is unable to impress its desire on the consciousness so that it filters through to the mind to tell the mind, think about the Lord. But then the jiva in this condition is still acting and is still doing and is still desiring and it's still creating chaos and havoc and creating good and bad. It is still doing that in the embodied soul. It's still doing that. So in that condition, there's hardly much coming from the soul. Like in the extreme example of a wild animal, right? It is happening by arrangement of nature. Paramatma has taken over the reins of the control for the subsistence of the lion. And therefore the lion will kill without mercy, without understanding, without knowledge. So how is that the function of the soul? That's a function of the mind and the function of the intellect, which helping the mind. And the intelligence and everything is just covered by modes of nature. So that is not being impelled by the soul. The desire for the soul is only in relationship to the Supreme Lord, because it is an uns of the Supreme Lord. The jiva is only thinking that I'm being eaten at night. It's never being eaten. So it's in a dream state. So therefore, in the dream state, the covered consciousness is acting. the chitta, is a covered consciousness is acting. And when in association of that's why when you're in association with the pure devotee, in association with the Sangha, there's a different kind of a feeling. That different kind of a feeling is coming from the soul. That is the awakening of the soul. That's why in Gita it says what is night for introspective sage is daytime, that's what it means. That for the yogi, for the person who's interested in spiritual life, it's different. In the association of Gurudev, in the association of devotees, you think about these things. But without that, say, for example, someone who has no inclination for spiritual life and is living in the lower side of, a degraded, I don't know, US or whatever city, and is completely drugged and everything. Where is any desire coming from anywhere? Is your mind is rehashing everything that is lived and is completely into animal consciousness. But when you can see the difference of the desire of the soul, because the soul does not desire to be in this prison house. The soul desires to be with Krishna. But the covered consciousness, the covering of its pure consciousness by this chitta, which is imprisoned by the mind, by false ego, and by fake knowledge and fake intelligence, makes it feel like, I want this, I want that. That is an imposition on the soul. That's how I understand it. That's how I read it. And it's a very delicate matter, because to understand the attributes of the jiva, to understand really, is a soul just consciousness, or is it, what is it? Is it self-conscious? And is it, is it the one that does things? Is it the one that impacts? It's a very delicate matter. It's not so easily understood. And Jiva Goswami writes on the ontology of the soul in Paramatma Sandarbha, and he writes, like, I tell you, ontology of the Jiva, the Tattvashta Shakti is the soul. He writes a whole second part of Paramatma Sandarbha, which goes, I don't know, about 200 pages. So it's a very intense topic, understanding the soul. I hope one day I will study. It's about this much here. Just ontology of the soul. It's a Paramatma Sandarbha. So it's like, I cannot at this point say that everything that I'm answering is 100% right, but I'm pretty much 80% maybe. But in a couple of months, I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for answering.
We're reflecting, no? We're reflecting on everything.
Yeah. And one thing I would like to highlight also is the word anadi, because in answering Salika Prabhu's question, you talked about anadi, that the conditioning state of the living entity is anadi, it's beginningless. But at the same time, you beautifully said that it's because we cannot trace when it started. So technically speaking, it has a beginning, but we cannot trace as to when. Therefore, we say it's anadi. Because Srila Prabhupada explains the word eternal, like we say eternally conditioned, eternally liberated. Eternally conditioned, Srila Prabhupada says, we say eternally because we cannot trace as to when it started. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada sometimes will say, since time immemorial. That means we cannot remember, we cannot recollect. But technically speaking, there was a particular point in time when the soul chose to become conditioned.
Thank you. Professor Sadev.
Yeah, and you see, it's the secret of fully understanding it really lies on understanding a little bit about the ontology of the soul, because the soul is not inert, it is not mutable, it doesn't change, and it is not only mere consciousness. It is conscious of itself, and it is self-luminous, and it is astonishing, as Chadivat, 229, the beautiful verse. And it is one form, it is of one form, and is situated in its own essential nature. What is its own essential nature? To serve the Lord, right? So it is very difficult to say at one point this happened and that happened. But Krishna, by putting it, his conditioning is anadi. Himself, he says that. So yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Yeah. But this is a perennial question. Then I think Prabhupada knew this way or that way. I'm sure that he knew everything. But what Prabhupada did is, for the preaching, he told us, why are you worried about it? Why don't you try to work? Because he kind of gave us I think I call it that litmus test. Even if you are knowing to be true or not true, will you do what Prabhupada says? It's a litmus test for the disciple, I feel like.
Well, Prabhuji, there are many times Sri Prabhupada said, like what you're saying, that, hey, you're already drowning. Somebody is here to help you. Now you want to find out how you got it down here. It's unnecessary.
Yes,
but
exactly.
There are a few times also that Sri Prabhupada also encouraged devotees to study this subject matter, because it's very important and very relevant for one to understand the reality of the spiritual world, because some of us here want to go back home, back to Godhead. And we want to go back home, back to Godhead, because we are tired of this place. And Krishna is saying that when you go there, you never come back. And if some people are saying that you go there, there is the possibility of you coming back, then it becomes a very serious topic to want to know which is which. So, of course, we always say this, but I think that we should create an opportunity to try to discuss and exhaust this topic as much as we possibly can, so the devotees can understand what is what. So I think that Anadi, Krishna himself has said that, but Sri Prabhupada, because we cannot understand most of the things Sri Krishna says, Sri Prabhupada tries to explain what Krishna means to us. And Sri Prabhupada has explained that Anadi, beginningless, is because it's immemorial. We cannot trace when it started. But I still strongly believe that it started at some point. So I will leave it like that. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sir Dave Prabhu, for leaving
It started
like that.
at some untraceable point.
Yes, untraceable point. Thank you for the good adjective.
Untraceable point. Thank you. Thank you for leaving it like that. Interesting subject, interesting topic. Madhuvan Prabhu, I'm coming.
I have one question. Does this discussion always happen, or happens only in my class?
Because somehow or the other, Krishna thinks, maybe Krishna feels that you have the capacity to satisfy devotees' inquisitiveness. Yeah, so it allows you to come each and every other time you come to class. And today I'm very fortunate. Most of the time when you're giving class in recent times, it always clashes with my other engagement. But I'm happy that I'm opportune to be able to be here today. The subject, you quoted the verse while answering Saturday Prabhu 229, the subject matter about the soul is amazing. Even for those who are self-realized, it is said to be amazing. So that's a big...
Yes, it's amazing. Because Krishna is amazing. So how can this everything that is in Krishna is a minutely there?
So satisfaction is that because it's actually Sadi Prabhu is very right. Yeah. So Sadi said something very beautiful just now. He said that because we're inquisitiveness is born out of the desire to go back to Godhead. So, and we want to be double sure, which is the nature of the condition. So, for what we're doing, especially those who are in the path of knowledge, and but the fact is that also based on the statements from the acharyas, there's a certain qualification required for someone, even in material life, to understand certain subject matter. So maybe as we're meditating and talking about it, I believe we're getting some level of purification, and one day we'll find ourselves in that place where we'll be able to understand everything, because we constantly are meditating upon it. So some devotees say don't discuss it because it's a very complex subject matter. But I think our contemplating on it, Krishna is seeing our desire. So, and we're getting purification because Krishna is noticing our desire. Because he said in the Bhagavad Gita 10:10 that as we desire, I reciprocate by giving the intelligence. So I'm sure that one of these days will take us to that point where we can realize this subject matter.
You can discuss it if after the class everyone feels enlivened and elevated. If after the class, if the class is going in a way that everyone can feel enlivened and elevated, and even not 100% convinced, but wow, this is nice, then it's fine. But if someone feels depressed and someone feels like, I joined the wrong movement and things like that, then you better not discuss it. That's why I was asking, why is it always in my class? Or is it always in my class?
Thank you. Maybe I'll make a suggestion. Maybe after the class, like you rightly said, maybe we'll look out for a day and then we'll have a sangha with you. And yes, it comes out in other classes.
No, because what I've said in these classes already. So I think there is no real need. It will only just rehash the same points. But what Prabhu said is because we want to know. But definitely when we go back to the spiritual world, we don't come back down here. Sure. That is 100% true. It is said by Krishna 2 times or 3 times in the Gita. And it is the same in Padma Puran and same in Bhagavad Puran. So that is 100% safe and secure. So why we're here, Anadi, beginless, bondage, because we're such fools, but we want to go back, then we're not coming back here. And wherever we go, Sadeh, wherever we go, as long as we're not under the influence of Mayadevi. Yes. As long as we escape her clutches of Tamo, Sattva, and Rajogun, I'm fine. Right? And I have some relationship with some incarnation of the Supreme Lord. It's fine. But of course, the highest is being in association with Lord Chaitanya and Radha and Krishna. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'm seeing 2 answers of Arishakra and Madhavan Prabhu. Madhavan Prabhu, please, I'll allow Arishakra to speak first. Then I'll come back to you because you asked a question before. I'm saying this in the respect for the time because we've been here for 1 hour, 57 minutes. And we will attend to your question, but I want Arishakra to go first, then we'll come back to you. I hope you don't mind, please. Arishakra Prabhu, please, can you unmute?
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Arishakra, you're muted.
Oh, what is going on? Okay, you're good now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Mute.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, like I said, I'm thanking Prabhu for his class, and the question he asked that, does this thing come up only in his class? I mean, there are certain questions that anytime he talks, it actually, I mean, inspires me to go and to ask those questions, because most of the time the answers he gives is like it makes real sense. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, well, I'm not trying to bring us back, but like what Ade was trying to analyze. Sometimes I also get confused a little bit, because when we talk about the soul being eternal, that we cannot imagine when the beginning of the soul was.
Muted again. You're muted again.
You're muted.
Sometimes when we meet some people and they are trying to prove the supremacy of maybe Lord Brahma or supremacy of Lord Shiva or the supremacy of any of these expansions of the Lord, we are told that Krishna, the Vasudeva Krishna himself, he is the source of all the other, and that he is the supreme. Good. So, knowing that somebody like Balaram, we cannot trace the beginning of Balaram. Neither can we trace the beginning of Lord Vishnu. Yet, anytime we speak, when the scripture tells us how the various expansions began, that Balaram came out of Krishna, and he also expanded into the four what do we call it? Narayan forms, like that. So somehow or the other, even though they are beginningless, yet the scripture is giving us the what do we call it? How each one expanded from this. So it's giving us some sort of like a beginning anyway. And that's why sometimes I get a little bit confused when we say we don't want to talk about the beginning of the Jiva. Because if even Balaram himself, being the Supreme Lord, we are told he was expanded out of Krishna, and he also expanded into all these Narayan forms, and gradually the expansion kept going till it came to Mahavishnu, Gabodekasai Vishnu. So at a certain point in time, somebody came from somewhere. And that is why anytime Prabhu comes, because sometimes somebody asks some technical question, and the way Prabhu will answer that technical question, it makes it so simple to understand. Yeah. And so Prabhu, thank you. So anytime you come, it's not that we bring up these topics because of your class. No, because we know that you can give simple answers to complex questions. And it inspires us to come up with all these things. So thank you very much, Prabhu.
So let me make a comment on what you said. When you were explaining about Lord Balaram, you used the word time at least 4 times. And the reason you do that is because the mind here in this material world is absorbed in time. It is controlled by time. It's like a song is being taped into a tape recorder, and it goes on a reel, on a tape. And without that tape, that song doesn't exist. So without the time factor, nothing exists in this world. Time factor creates a beginning, and it creates an end, and it creates a middle, and it creates a creation, and it creates a destruction. So when we understand spiritual subject matters, Hari Chakra Prabhu, and you're talking about Lord Balaram and so on and so forth, these things are not within the realm of time. So we are using our own experience of time to try to understand Lord Balaram's appearance. Lord Balaram's appearance is never an effect of time. But because the word itself, appearance, means that then it wasn't here, now it is here. So therefore it gives a concept of time. You see, but Lord Balaram's appearance is never within time. Time doesn't even exist. Kala doesn't even exist in the spiritual world. Kala, which is the external material manifestation of the energy of the Supreme Lord in this material world. And it is the most subtle and the most powerful conditioning. And every one of us is thinking. And that's why we go on and on about when did we get conditioned? Because actually you can escape from, when you know that you've escaped from death is when you become fearless. You can escape from Maya. But then to escape from time, you have to become fearless, which means that death is coming, you stand there and you laugh at it. Right? And you feel nothing and you welcome it. So because we are controlled so much by time, time is the biggest factor of control in our lives. And we cannot think outside the concept of time. We take the concept of time out, we cannot understand anything. But the Lord's appearance, the Lord's activities, they are not laid out on time. They are not laid out on the stratum of time. It has its own circuit. It has its own cycle. Right? Like one devotee in 1968 asked Srila Prabhupada about Arjuna and Kunti Devi. And he said, they are with Krishna in some other planets and doing the pastimes with him. And they go on eternally. So, but we will think, oh, the same Arjuna. Then if I say about like this to you, Arjuna and Kunti Devi says, oh, that Arjuna and Kunti Devi that came to the Earth planet 5,000 years ago, you'll think like that. You see, you cannot get out of the concept of working within the confines and within the brain being saturated with the concept of time. This is funny. That's how we think like this.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. It's actually when you during the class you did elaborated on this point, and you emphasized on the time, how we control by time. And actually, I mentioned I wanted to ask a question, but because of time and the other person's time, equal space of time, but I hope one of these days we'll be able to talk about the time factor. At this point, because we've been here for 2 hours, 6 minutes, I know there are more questions from devotees, and I really appreciate your interest and passion to learn further. But for the sake of time, again, because of the sake of time, we have to officially bring this class to a close for now, and then we'll have opportunity to ask more questions. So I'm requesting those devotees who will ask more other questions to please kindly bear with me. So on this note, I'll request all of the devotees to please kindly unmute. Let us loudly chant a powerful Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to appreciate His grace, ADVAITA Krishna Prabhu, for giving us this wonderful moment.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
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 Rama
Hare
Rama,
Rama
Hare
Rama
Hare.
Hari Hari.
Vaishnavataramascha Kripasindhya Vacha
Kirtanam
Patitanam
Pavanebhyo,
Vaishnavebhyo
Namo
Namo Namaha.
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Grace,
Hare
ADVAITA
Krishna.
Krishna
Thank you
Prabhu.
very much.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Devotees.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.